Hi everybody, in this video we're going to be looking at how to make an ocarina, and we'll end up with a whistle that will work using simply a lump of clay and also some basic clay tools. So let's get started. Here's our lump of clay, and the lump of clay we're going to be using today is just a mass white clay, kind of a standard art supply clay. And with the piece that's about the size of a baseball, we're going to be breaking it into 3 parts to start with. So 2 of these parts should be the same size, and a third will just be whatever's left over. So with these, you want to wedge them really well, and wedging is simply dropping and turning the clay. The reason we do this is so that the air bubbles within the clay, and they will not be a problem for you when it goes into the kiln. So after you've dropped and turned these about 10 to 15 times each, then you want to roll them in your hand and even kind of pack them like a snowball till they're roughly about the size of a golf ball and somewhat round. Okay, and then you want to do the same thing with the other one. And again, pack it like a snowball, or like you're making a meatball. And if you notice that one is a lot bigger than the other, at this time you should peel off some clay and add it to your extra pile so that they're about the same size. And then finish rounding it out. Okay, so we got 2 about the same size and a extras pile. This extras pile is later going to become the mouthpiece, but we're going to start off with the 2 pinch pots. So we've made these into 2 spheres. You're going to take your thumb, and just like you're doing thumbs down, push your thumb into the center of the clay ball, and you're going to use your 4 fingers on the outside, almost like crab pinchers, and you're going to support it in the left hand instead of on the table. If you made a pinch pot on the table by turning and pinching, it would have a flat bottom, and we want to go for something that's semicircular. So you're going to use your, in my case I'm using my left hand, to hold the clay while I'm pinching and turning. I don't know if you get a good view here. So pinching and turning, pinching and turning. And what you're going for is to have a clay bowl, almost, that has a equal thickness for the walls and also the bottom of the bowl. So this is going to be half of the body of the whistle, because you need to have a hollow resonating chamber. So as you're turning and pinching, okay, you don't want to pinch too much because you do still want to have a rim here, because this is where the 2 are going to come together to make a hollow egg. So I'm going to set that aside. And then do the same thing to the other one. Thumbs down.
Into the middle of the clay, and use your 4 fingers on the outside. You're going to squeeze and turn and squeeze and turn, just like a crab pinching motion. But again, not on the table because that will make a flat side. Now, if you're pinching and turning and your clay
starts to get this kind of elephant skin texture, that's okay. It just means your clay is drying out a little bit, because as you handle the clay, your hands are absorbing a lot of the moisture. And we're going to be scoring that rim later by adding some lines into the clay. So it's really not a big deal if you have these kind of cracks happening. I call them like elephant skin because elephants have very crackly skin. So once you have your 2 pinch pots, just make sure that they are about the same size. So put them together loosely and just kind of twirl them and see that they, approximately fit. If one is way bigger than the other, then you should probably choose the smaller one and crumple up the big, the big half and start over again, removing some clay. So these are about the same size. So they are ready to be connected. I'm going to come over to using my fettling knife. It's about as sharp as a butter knife, but you do still want to be carving away from yourself. So I'm going to be holding the pinch pot and cutting these little grooves into the rim of this bowl, going all the way around the outside edge, and then taking the other one and doing the same thing. So this is called scoring when you're making these lines. And you're roughing up the clay surface so that when it comes together, it has something to grab onto. So instead of having two pieces of clay that are just kind of like trying to stick together, but they're both smooth, instead you're having two roughed up sides and they're kind of interlocking and they're going to grab each other. So you want these two pieces to be, shaking hands instead of fist bumping. So from here we're going to grab some slip, which is just a clay and water mixture. Okay. So here's my container of slip. It's just some clay and water mixed together. You want to reach down to the bottom so you're actually getting some of the clay. And then you're going to smother the edge of one side with the slip. And connect it to the other side. So we take the other side, and when you're putting these together, you're going to carefully fit them and gently but firmly press these two pieces together, and you'll end up with some slip squeezing out and then forming it into a ball. If your clay is a little bit drier, then you'll probably want to take a fettling knife and hold this and smooth across like you're peeling a potato. Still maintaining that it's round, but our goal is just to hide the seam of the clay coming in contact with the other piece of clay. So right about now, the seam is pretty well hidden. There's just a little bit of a difference from one side to the other, but it's pretty well masked. Okay, so that's the hollow part. This is about as far as you'll get in one class time, putting these two halves together. In the next class, you'll take this third piece of clay and you want to wedge it into a rectangular prism. So you'll drop and turn, and then go on the ends. And try to get rid of any creases in the clay. You don't want to have any air pockets trapped in here somewhere that you can't see. So you're very deliberately dropping, turning it to the side, dropping it again. Now in the directions handout, this is called a clay thumb because it should be about the thickness of your thumb and also about the same length. So this piece is much too long. So I'm going to go with my fettling knife and just cut it like a piece of butter. And then put my extra clay back in the clay bag. Now this clay thumb needs to have an angle on it because when this is joining to the resonating chamber, if it's a flat piece like this, it won't attach to the circle. So I'm going to take one side and bevel it so that it's cut at a 45-degree angle. 45 degrees just being half of 90, so it's at a little slope. And then we're going to score up the mouthpiece. Also score up anywhere on the sphere, the hollow resonating chamber, because it is a circle. So it doesn't really matter where you start scoring. So I roughed up a little patch here, and I roughed up the end here. So these two roughed up parts are going to get some slip and then be attached and shake hands. So going into the slip, going to apply some of that to the scoring. And then wiggle so that these two parts are coming together nice and tight. Again, all this slip that's squeezed out, not a big problem because we're just going to smooth that in. But do make sure it is on there nice and tight. Okay. Now, as one of the last things that I'm going to do to make this into a whistle is to turn it over. So here's the belly, and there's going to be a flat side on what would be the top. So if I turn that around again, this has a little bit of a rounded bump on the top here, and then it has the rounded belly here. So I'm going to turn it over, put it on the table, and then just gently tap it a couple times. Not hard. And then when I turn it over again, now it's nice and flat across the top. Okay. So it still has a belly down here. If the belly got a little squished when you were tapping, just make sure that you round that out again. Okay, and then to get this to produce some sound, we're going to need two holes cut into it. One is going to be cut at the end, and one is going to be cut right where the curve of the whistle meets the mouthpiece part. So if I turn this over, so you can best see it, the airway is going to start curving around and then boop. So it's like continuing the curve of the circle as if the mouthpiece wasn't there. And we're going to do the mouthpiece slot using a popsicle stick because it happens to be the right size. Okay, so with the popsicle stick, you can see this way, we're going to go through the mouthpiece into the hollow chamber, and it will offer some resistance until you make it into that hollow spot, so you'll know that it's in all the way. If it's easily, pushing here. It's a good idea to keep your hand around the back of it as you're pushing the popsicle stick through so that you don't go through the back here with the popsicle stick. So I'm going to leave the popsicle stick in. It's about, centered on the mouthpiece part. And while I leave that popsicle stick in, I'm going to take my knife, and the knife is going to follow the curve of the sphere and dip in. And it's going to dip in and touch the popsicle stick, and I'm just going to give it a wiggle back side to side. So this is going to give me a 45-degree, almost as if this curve is continuing in until it touches the popsicle stick, and then it stops. So from here, we want to be able to see the popsicle stick. So we're going to take the knife again and just kind of clear away some of the clay. Now, if there's too much distance from the popsicle stick to the top of the mouthpiece here, you can actually kind of just cut across, because you don't want the air to have a long way to go from the popsicle stick where it is now out. So you can give it a little bit of a haircut here. Okay, so I just took off quite a bit of clay. But I left the popsicle stick in, that's important, because you don't want this airway to close and then have to push through again.